Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is James Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Monday night live stream for now week 15 of the 2024 fantasy football season. I hope you all are doing well after this interesting weekend of fantasy-related events. Of course, week 15 treated many of us in different ways. Perhaps you were on the opposing end of a Josh Allen legacy legendary performance, or perhaps you were on the side in which you had him on roster. Perhaps tonight you had Jamar Chase working towards your team's efforts, and if you did, congratulations. What a ridiculous game. I'm telling you guys, I mentioned this last week on Wednesday's wide receiver episode. The owner, the GM, whoever's responsible for not signing Jamar Chase this offseason, they're going to owe him over $40 million a year for like 5 years. They're going to go bankrupt. I know that the league's, the cap is continuing to increase every single year, but the volume of money they're going to owe him because of this ridiculous season is, it's going to break the market. It's going to reset the market at points. But either way, hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you guys found success in week 14. Now that we approach week 15, our backs are to the wall. Now, henceforth, as if week 14 wasn't already a win to get in scenario, we are going to continue with win to get in scenarios rest of the way. We just got to hope that our rosters are healthy. And of course, we make the right decisions in terms of starter sits henceforth. Over the course of the next hour, we're going to be talking all things fantasy football. If you guys have a question, make sure you include your scoring format in it, whether you do type it in the live chat or send it in via super chat in order to claim priority. Outside of that, hope you guys are ready. Let's get into it, shall we? Nathan Dennison with his first super chat question of the day says, I scored 185 points. I have Nakua and Chase. Let's get it. Are we ranking Amon-Ra lowering starting at this point on? I mean, look, the Amon-Ra ranking, when you take on the Buffalo Bills this week, considering what Nakua and Kupp just accomplished against them, I'm expecting it to be a high-scoring back-and-forth bout between the Bills and Lions. So am I ranking him lower? The fact of the matter is, if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown on your team, it doesn't matter where I rank him. He is in your lineup. If he's not in your lineup, it's an irresponsible decision by you, right? So no, I'm not ranking him any lower. He is still going to be in that top-tier conversation because that's the kind of receiver he is. That's just the fact of the matter. All right, let's see here. What do we have in this live chat? You know what was funny? When the intro music was rolling, if I'm not mistaken, 26 bands up said, I played Arizona, Pickens, and Bucky and still won. Okay, so why did you play Pickens, brother? That's my question. As soon as I saw that, my only question was, okay, I understand Bucky. He gets hurt midway through that game or in the early half of the game. Midway through that second quarter, we don't see him return. Why did you end up playing Pickens? Did you just disappear, fall asleep, and not address that at all? That was my only question on that regard. Let's see here. We have DeRozan in the chat said Chase was the real 1.01 this year. Okay, so here's the issue with 1.1. You got to remember this offseason, he didn't practice. The expectation was that he was not going to even play this year had they not given him a contract. Like, that was the entire thing. He didn't show up to training camp. So no one was going to draft him 1.1 because how did we know if he was going to play? You know what I mean? So that was the issue regarding that. So that's really just not even a possibility. I don't think anybody drafted him 1.1. Constantino, what's up? Says, we got our second of 3 teams this week, my boy. Unfortunately, losing Bucky and Kenneth is going to kill me. Yeah, that's going to be rough. Hopefully, you could pick up Sean Tucker and see if you can kind of survive that. If you don't have Charbonnet to back up Kenneth Walker, hopefully this is a lesson for many of us to understand that we need to have our top-tier running backs handcuffs on roster, even though Charbonnet in his own right can have individual value. He's not really a handcuff. He's technically a top 40 option every week, considering he has the ability to score. But man, what a game by Charbonnet, huh? Maddie in the chat says, I won 179 to 164. I had Chase, Puka, Jacobs. Okay, let me just show you guys something really quickly. I hear you guys. Those are incredible scores. Today, I scored 233 points in a 1QB league PPR. 233 points. Let me see if I can screenshot my roster and put it on screen. Give me a second here. Oh, I need to include the defense. Hold up. Here we go. This is my PPR team that is like one of my home leagues that I need to save this to the desktop really quickly. This is one of my home leagues in which I play with family, friends, stuff like that. So again, it's mainly the bragging rights. It's not a matter of like, oh, I'm winning, $500,000. No. It's nothing like that. This is just a matter of like, I'm cooking up with the homies and I'm definitely cooking. Like, let's not get it twisted, right? Like, I'm not going to lose a home league. Look at this roster, okay? it's not the, listen, there's some pieces here that obviously will dominate. Okay. But I mean, 233 points in one QB league, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, full PPR. I didn't even set the best roster. I technically had, who did I leave on the bench? I think I left Garendo on the bench for Pollard. I think that was my only other mistake in this league. Otherwise, what a monster squad that one is. All right, anyway, let's see what we got here. We had God's Gang who sent in a question. Says, Higgins disappeared. Yeah, that one was rough. Again, I've told you guys, people were upset last Thursday regarding Amon-Ra and Reed completely being no-shows. I told you, I'm like, just wait till this weekend. Somebody's going to no-show and kill your week. It's going to happen. It happens every week. Somebody just no-shows. In this case, we know the reason why. It was the Jamar Chase show. Higgins obviously disappeared, was rough. He says, I'm down 26 points. I hope I can continue to be clutch going into next week. My opponent played Addison slash Jefferson against me. So are you in a 2-week playoffs? Is that what you're referring to, God's Gang? Yeah, that would be interesting. Thomas Dabney says, I just blew out my opponent by 109 points. Yeah, that's Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Josh Jacobs. Yeah. When your quarterback scores 6 touchdowns, guys, it's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous. Again, I mentioned it this offseason. I'll continue to spout it. Josh Allen, by all relevant metrics, is the greatest fantasy football quarterback of all time. He will go down in history. Until somebody wants to come and dethrone him, he will go down in history as the greatest fantasy quarterback of all time based on his overall contributions, not only through the air, but of course, what he does on the ground. Obviously made up a lot of his overall... When we had looked at last week, prior to week 14, the overall rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, obviously Jalen Hurts was significantly ahead of him. He's starting to catch up, having scored a rushing touchdown in 4 consecutive games now. Let's see here. Deshaun says Isaac Garendo prayer circle. Yeah, I mean, from experience, I will say, considering it's a Thursday game, we're going to hope that he plays. My goodness, are we going to hope that he plays? But even if he does, that offensive line's pretty banged up. Either way, yeah, we'll hope for the best. If you can't, it'll be unfortunate. But I mean, at least try to go get Patrick Taylor in case he's not able to play, because I think he'll still be a solid fill-in. All right, let's see here. Nick L in the chat says Higgins and Cardinals defense disappointed. Yeah, I mean, beyond disappointed. I mean, I think there are many of players that didn't have great performances. But yeah, those are the two. I mean, Higgins, I would say mainly him and Amon-Ra were the biggest disappointments at wide receiver this week, for sure. Blue Jay says, I dropped 180. I'm 7-7 and I clinched the playoffs. Thanks to Charbonnet and Jamar. Let's go. Atta baby. Carl Son in the chat says, I put up 204 with Rashad Addison. Garendo Charbonnet had a 3% chance to make the playoffs, and now I clinched. That is ridiculous. Donald Smith says, I dropped 171. 7-7 made the playoffs. I'm so happy, guys. You don't understand this. When you guys relay this information to me, again, it's as if I am, like, it feels like I won, right? It's weird. By osmosis, I'm collecting these victories and making playoffs via you guys telling me this information. It really does make my day. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Denon sends in a question. Thank you, Denon. Says, I had Josh Allen and Chase Brown and barely made the playoffs by a point difference. So, yeah, Josh Allen, the king. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, Chase Brown too, man. Chase Brown, just wait till, I mean, I'm already thinking about next year. Chase Brown is going to go in the first round. Like, I don't see a reality in which they need to have another running back in this backfield going forward. They don't need to have a Zach Moss or Khalil Herbert. Hopefully they don't draft anybody to compete with him, because quite frankly, it's going to be a lot of production for Chase Brown next year. I mean, as if it already isn't thus far this season. The guy has scored consistently, another game of 100 total yards and a touchdown. The volume of receptions he gets is ridiculous. Let's see here. Akuma sends in a question. Thank you, Akuma. Says, Andrew, 4-point per touchdown, Love or Purdy this week? Love or Purdy? Okay, so that one's an interesting one. So I want to say Love. That's what I want to say, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to play Purdy there on Thursday. Against Seattle, I want to see, is there an expected weather report for Seattle? I don't want it to be crazy this weekend. Let's see here. This weekend, let's go to week 15. No, there's nothing. Okay, so there's nothing as of right now. I'm going to say Purdy for right now. especially considering how that offense is kind of turned. The Packers are no longer the pass-heavy team. We're going to run the ball down your throat team, and Josh Jacobs is going to eat in the red zone. I mean, Josh Jacobs has scored, if I'm not mistaken, like 10 rushing touchdowns in the last, or 10 total touchdowns in the last 6 games, many of which have been rushing touchdowns. So it's really starting to chip away at the overall value of Purdy in this, Jordan Love in this regard. So I'm going to lean towards Purdy there. Akuma. Let's see here. God's Gang says yes. 2-week playoffs in my league. Got it. All right. I mean, look, being down 22, having taken on a Jordan Addison team, I think you're probably in a pretty good spot going forward. X Factor says, I'm going in the playoffs with Bijan, Braylon Allen, Jalen Warren, and an injured Kenneth Walker. Who are your top running back pickups? Again, earlier today, we dropped our top running back pickups in regards to waiver wire pickups for week 15 here. Patrick Taylor Jr., the 49ers running back, who could play on Thursday in the event in which Isaac Guerrero is out. He would be a primary option. Sincere McCormick, the running back of the Raiders, could be a solid play. In the event in which Breece Hall doesn't return this week, you could theoretically pick up and play someone like Isaiah Davis. He had himself a pretty good volume of opportunity and workload, and of course, a lot of receiving upside there that will only continue to grow. Taking on Jacksonville this week is a fantastic matchup. Outside of that, you could theoretically pick up and play Sean Tucker in the event in which Bucky Irving is designated out, but based on this most recent week's performances, it looks like Rachaad White is going to be the clear and away RB1. For those of you who have Rachaad White, I mean, the guy has a knack for scoring touchdowns. The guy has scored so many touchdowns. I think in the last 6 games, he has scored 7 touchdowns total, if I'm not mistaken. He just continues to be ridiculous in that regard. So those are a couple of the options that are widely available in leagues. If there's somebody else that should not be there that is rostered in probably 40+% of leagues, maybe like a Tank Bigsby could be out there. That could be an option, but the other names are probably available there, X Factor. Let's see here. What do we have? Let me scroll down here. We had a question sent in from Brian, Colorado. Brian, thank you very much. Let me see if I can find your question in the chat. Brian, where art thou? Brian says, I went up against Josh Allen, had a 5% chance to win and clinch the first seed. Chase goes off, wins the week, going 11-3. Wow. I had to put Devontae Smith in for Pickens. Thank goodness Higgins did nothing for it. Yeah, to say the least. But hey, congratulations. I mean, 11-3 is a very strong record. And getting the first round bye is incredibly clutch. Again, for those of you who have first round byes going into the fantasy playoffs and you won't be participating in week 15, again, start preparing defenses for week 16, specifically trying to target the defenses that are playing against the Giants or potentially the defenses that are playing the Saints. If Derek Carr is going to miss the next 4 weeks here, considering the concussion protocol, the hand injury, all that kind of jazz, the Saints with whatever they want to put as their backup quarterback, whether they do decide to put in Rattler or the third string guy, it doesn't matter. I mean, again, you want to target going after those, unfortunately, those the shitty offenses. Thank you, Brian. Let's hear Kyle Strobel sends in a question. Kyle says, Reek, Cup, Neighbors, and or JSN. PPR, who am I leaving out? Okay, so as of right now, I think Neighbors is the one that continues to be left out going forward. I mean, Cup, you can't sit. Reek, I don't think you can sit. It then becomes a matter of Neighbors and JSN. And just quite frankly, Neighbors doesn't have the quarterback to support him. Remember when everybody was telling me on Sunday morning, Andrew, they said that Neighbors is going to be limited. I told you guys, do not trust in Schefter or Rappaport or any of those kind of news harbinging, the word is not coming out of my mouth correctly. The aggregate news leak guys, those, do not listen to them in regards to player personnel and how much volume a player will get. They do not have the information. Anyway, going forward, I'm still not interested in playing Neighbors there. JSN, Reek, and Cup will be your guys, Kyle. Raghav sends in a question, says, part 2. Okay, Raghav, let me see what your part 1 is. It says, hey, Andrew, I put up 233 points. Wow. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex PPR. Thanks for the advice. 60 points more than the second highest scorer, allowing me to secure a playoff spot. Atta baby, let's go. Let's see here. What is your part 2? It says, starter sit for round 1 of the playoffs. We have Darnold, we have Love. Okay, so I'm going to play Darnold there against the Bears. Achane, Jacobs, Charbonnet, Connor, Guerrero. Okay. Jamar, Cup, Jacoby, Debo. We have Kittle, Jonnu. I mean, look, the way that I see it right now, Raghav, I would play Darnold over Love. Achane, Jacobs. I mean, Achane, Jacobs have to play. In the event in which Kenneth Walker is out, Charbonnet is your flex. Cup and Jamar are your wide receivers. Kittle's your tight end. And that's it. I mean, quite frankly, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to play guys like Connor or Garendo. Now, in the event in which, again, Kenneth Walker comes back and Charbonnet is no longer a relevant option, you pivot to playing Connor against New England of all defenses, which is a fantastic matchup and great play. So, I mean, I think this week you probably secure a victory here, Raghav, because your team is stacked across the board. All right, let's see here. Anonymous, congratulations. Let's go, baby. Sean K says, weeks like this, where you have multiple game breakers, makes things even more exciting. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, well, look, here's the thing, right? It makes it more exciting if you have the game breaker on your team. Imagine you got schmacked by a guy who has Josh Allen and Jamar Chase, right? Well, they wouldn't, but imagine, okay, you got completely fried by a team that has Jamar Chase, Jordan Addison, or, you know, like if you got killed by one of those teams, and let's say you had a solid week, you're like, I outscored everybody, but I lost this week because I had to just randomly play based on schedule the best team within the given week. I mean, it's just the random luck of fantasy at that point. All right, let's see here. We had a question that was sent in from Austin, who says 2 questions. Number 1, will AJ Brown be better going forward into the fantasy playoffs? Going forward into the fantasy playoffs, their upcoming matchups, specifically this week, Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, AJ Brown, just like many of these other wide receivers at the top of this conversation, we know what they're capable of, right? He's coming off a week in which he was quite lackluster in terms of his overall upside. Unfortunately, we had guys like Devontae Smith and, well, at least unfortunately in your case, Devontae Smith, Calcaterra scoring touchdowns instead of him. If I look at the Eagles' schedule as of right now, Steelers, I mean, it should be a competitive one, but I think, again, he will play well there. The Commanders, again, once they have Marshawn Lattimore there, will be a little bit sketchy. And then against the Cowboys in Week 17, I think he'll be fine. But again, if you have A.J. Brown on your team, there are very few wide receivers I'm going to play ahead of him. So really, I don't know if you have the luxury of being like, well, I actually have so many studs that I don't have to play him. If you have that kind of a luxury, I mean, again, you're probably one of very few people to be able to do such a thing. Otherwise, all of us are just starting him going forward. And then it says, also, question number 2, will T. Higgins still be good in fantasy at the playoffs? I mean, look, again, 1 week does not determine future success and or failures. Just because he didn't get himself double-digit targets today doesn't mean that T. Higgins next week is not going to continue to get himself the ample opportunity. I mean, the 6 prior games that he just played this season were all 14-plus fantasy points. All right, 1 bad game. Does that mean that it's going to lead to a streak of complete tilt? I mean, time will tell, but as of right now, I'm not going to let that 1 game be the determining factor of me sitting him next week. Again, it's a different matchup. It's a different defense. It's a different game plan. Just let this one roll down our back. All right, let's see here. Marco sends in a question, says, rank waiver options, PPR, Watson, Patrick Taylor, Bigsby. Okay, I think it's purely a matter of what your team has on roster. You're only picking up Patrick Taylor if you need a running back, specifically if you're filling in for Garendo. If you put, let's say, for example, you emptied the fab clip last week for Garendo, you have to try to do something to get Patrick Taylor. Otherwise, all that fab that you utilized in the event in which Garendo could theoretically be out on Thursday would kill you. So ultimately, you'd only go after Patrick Taylor if you are looking to try to clutch up the position of Thursday in the event in which Garendo's out, or you would only go after him if you're trying to prevent the team that you're playing against from using him against you. So again, there's multiple strategies which you go about this. Otherwise, if you don't need a running back, you're not utilizing this waiver option on Taylor. I'd rather go after a guy like Watson as the number 1. So that's the way that I'm thinking about it, Marco. Let me know in the chat, Marco, what your running backs look like so I can give you a better, or I can get a better understanding as to your specific scenario and as to how we can, approach it going forward. Easy E says, thanks, AK, in the chat. Okay, let's see here. Easy, where's your question? It says, PPR, I scored 196 with Josh Allen, Jamar Chase. Look, I earlier said, no one's going to have Jamar Chase and Josh Allen on the same team. Well, I guess here we go. You have Josh Jacobs, you have Chase Brown, McBride, Tony Pollard, Vikings defense. Will Reichard benches Jawan Jennings, Addison. Oh, brother, you you hit the lottery. Easy, do me a favor. Go buy a lottery ticket. I don't know where you are. I don't know how old you are. It's probably, considering that roster, you probably have the highest scoring bench. You could have probably outscored teams with your bench alone. I'd say go pick up a lottery ticket. If you win, don't let anybody know. Just disappear. Go buy an island. You'll be good to go, brother. Chris Kreider says, appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Football is Life sends in a question. Says, I got my miracle. Thanks for advising Charbonnet over Braylon Allen. No problem. God's Gang says, will we see a full workload of Pacheco next week? I don't even know. Again, you're going to see it tomorrow. I was already working on running back rankings for tomorrow's episode while I was watching that game on the second monitor. I don't know what to do with Pacheco. I mean, I know what to do. I'm not going to play him. That's what I'm going to do. Because quite frankly, I don't trust that they're going to give him the ample opportunity, whether it's on the ground or through the air. And the offense as a whole is just not potent. They are just a field goal machine. That's all they do. So for right now, is he going to get a full workload next week? I don't think so. Nothing from what I have seen thus far leads me to believe that they're going to give him a full workload. I mean, at times he looks great, and at other times they ignore him. That's purely what it is. And I understand it. Again, the injury he's coming off of is brutal. Again, the fact that he was able to come back as quickly as he was, props to him. But ultimately, for our fantasy sake, I don't know if I can trust him. Let's see here. We had a question that says, hey, chat, are we going Denver or Baltimore in week 15? I'd rather go Baltimore. Again, anytime I could take advantage of a quarterback like Drew Lock, I think that's preferred. I think Denver's defense is also going to be a top 3 play, specifically taking on Anthony Richardson, but there's always a possibility that, if one or two things go in the direction of the Colts and they continue to just run the ball down Denver's defense's throat, even though Denver's been pretty solid in terms of stopping the run, there are just so many threats within that Colts offense that could have great games, Anthony Richardson included, Jonathan Taylor, etc., in comparison to what the Giants have to offer, that Baltimore's just a better play overall. Freddie in the chat says, can we trust Kamara? I mean, theoretically speaking, okay, just based on what we have seen from our experience thus far this season. In the 3 games in which Kamara played without Derek Carr, in a half PPR, he scored 14, 5, and 15. So he's had solid games even without Derek Carr in the lineup. So even if they decide to choose and play Spencer Rattler in the next coming weeks here, I still believe that Kamara is still a solid startable option. Again, assuming he's going to get himself the receiving utilization he requires. Next week's matchup against Washington, again, my only concern is if that Saints defense falls apart and Washington comes out and amasses a giant lead just like they most recently did against the Titans in week 13. It could just force the Saints no longer running the ball, but that doesn't hurt Kamara. That only helps him because he's a receiving back. So I think he'll still be relevant regardless. Let's see here. Ross Wong sends in a question. Ross, thank you. It says must-win week to secure playoff spot. Okay, Ross. First and foremost, please don't tell me your championship game is week 18. If it is, try to convince your commissioner to change that for future purposes, because that really is not going to be a fun experience. I can tell you from many of experiences over the course of the last 4 years of doing this, on Sunday mornings when we get to week 18 Sunday, we don't even know who's playing half the time. So it's going to be an interesting one. But anyway, let's see what your question was. It says, I have, trying to secure a playoff spot, lowest points 4 out of the 4-way tie, dropped the bomb of 225 points this week to secure the 4th spot. Wow. That is ridiculous. Okay, so now I understand. You don't play in a Week 18 championship. I should have read the full question. I took it out of context. I now understand. Week 14 was your must-win to get into the playoffs, and you were able to secure it. Congratulations, Ross. That's fantastic. Cracker in the chat says, hey, Andrew, Bo Nix or Kyler Murray this week? 6 point per passing touchdown. I'd rather play Bo Nix. Eric Bush sends in a question, says, scared to death of Debo. Yeah. Flex him or Kraft? Look, am I going to play Kraft this week? Jeez Louise, against Seattle. Look, Seattle's matchup for tight ends is quite promising. Okay, so here's the thing. Deebo Samuel typically has an incredible track record against the Rams. This being said, the offense is George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, and that is it. So for right now, I'd probably tell you to play Kraft. Especially considering they're playing the Rams. Last time out against the Rams, what did Juwan Jennings go for? 175 and 3 touchdowns. So they're probably going to go back to that well. Easy E says 145 on the bench. Yeah, that's ridiculous. 145 on the bench. That is ridiculous. Let's see. Frosty says, remember the guy the other day called like prop bet god or something like that, constantly arguing against Garendo and Charbonnet? I do remember that, Frosty. Again, I'm not going to bring that up. He was arguing against it, but hey, listen, that's the whole point of this. I'm just here to provide what I believe is going to be the right place. He did want to play, and he did tell me he was going to play Braylon Allen over, I think, Grando or Charbonnet. I don't know which one of the two. Hopefully he still won. Because again, he has a good team. It's just a matter of maybe he got into his own head about it. And it happens to all of us. I mean, that's fantasy football. It happens. Let's see here. Frenzy 40K says, I lost out on the bye because my wife destroyed my week 14. She had Allen and Puka Nacua, Denver or Arizona defense for this week. I'd rather have Denver's defense for this week, most likely. Rob Castle says, can we trust Rico if Bucky can't go? Can we trust Rico? Wait. Okay, so you're going to probably have to rephrase that question. So why are you asking me about, am I out of frame? No, okay, no. Why are you asking about Rico Dowdle if Bucky's out? They're not even on the same team. How do they have to do with one another? Or are you just asking like, okay, if Bucky doesn't play, my backup is Rico Dowdle? If that's the case, I mean, Rico Dowdle is a must start this week against Carolina, especially considering he's coming off of back-to-back 100-yard rushing games, and he continues to, be incredibly efficient despite the fact that they lost Zach Martin up front. Mr. Meeks sends in a question. Mr. Meeks, thank you very much. Says, thanks for the help, bro. Picked up Charbonnet and Garendo, was down big in my second week first round matchup. Opponent had 50 points, led before tonight Burrow and Brown. Jeez, dude, that is crazy. Charbonnet and Garendo on the same roster is that's some Infinity Gauntlet stuff, man. You put it together, and congrats. That's fantastic to hear. Marco in the chat says, first round bye secured. Running backs are Kyron, Chuba, Charbonnet, Benson, Warren. Okay, so look, those running backs are monsters. Chuba Hubbard, I mean, look, dude, that was the most unfortunate thing. Seeing Jonathan Brooks tear his same ACL, dude, I was sick to my stomach. I was like, there's no way this guy's going to tear the same ACL. Lo and behold, it's so unlucky. That is going to be rough. But hey, for those of you who have Chuba Hubbard, I guess this theoretically helps a little bit, even though Chuba Hubbard was getting the vast majority of workload anyway. So it's not like Jonathan Brooks was really getting himself much into the mix, maybe a little bit of the receiving upside. But going into this week, Chuba should be a fantastic play against Dallas nonetheless. Anyway, your rest of your roster, CeeDee Lamb, Neighbors, JSN, Tillman, Elijah Moore. 2 flex this league. We have Watson, Bigsby available. I mean, if we're looking for this week, Kyron, Chuba, Charbonnet, assuming Kenneth Walker's out, those 3 have to play. So you'd play 2 at running back and 1 in the flex. CeeDee Lamb has to play. JSN has to play. I think Neighbors has to play in this scenario. So that would be your 6 players to roll with. Your 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex. Am I going to pick up and play Watson or Bigsby? Not too interested in Bigsby because I don't think that the offense is going to put themselves into a position to where they're close enough within the game to be able to run the ball consistently. I think what will most likely happen is the Jets take an early lead, and when they do so, it'll force them to have to look in the direction of Etienne as more of the priority option within the upcoming matchup, just like it was back in week 13 in comparison to this most recent game. So I don't really love Bigsby there. But as for Watson, I don't mind picking him up, but I wouldn't play him over the alternative options you have on roster. CD, Neighbors, JSN, etc. Thank you, Marco. All right, let's see here. What else we have in the chat? Ando in the chat says, half PPR rest of season, 2 wide receivers and a flex. We have Puka, London, Reed, Evans, Tyreek, James Conner. I mean, at this point, James Conner the next 2 weeks is an incredible play against Carolina and this week in specific, New England. Both of those run-stop defenses are typically ones that we want to take advantage of. This is why we have James Conner on roster. Luckily, he was able to get himself some momentum this most recent week in terms of the receiving game, the rushing category, all that kind of jazz. So, I mean, Puka is an automatic must-start. Ando, obviously, as you know, I would assume that going with Tyreek, Evans in London, those guys can be like rotated based on matchup within a given week, and Connor's probably your flex. I mean, that's probably how you'll have to go about it. But specifically within this upcoming matchup, if I'm not mistaken, Miami takes on Houston. I'd play Tyreek Hill as your wide receiver 2 next to Puka, and I'd flex James Conner there. All right, let's see here. Let me scroll down here really quickly. AC says Dowdle has Carolina. Yeah, should be fantastic. Should be fantastic. Nick says Jennings or Evans in a PPR. Considering he plays against LA, I have a hard time not playing him there. I mean, both teams are taking on an LA team, as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be taking on the LA Chargers. I think that is going to be a pretty solid game for Mike Evans as well. But, I mean, I'm playing Jennings there. I am. Objectively. I got to play him. I mean, look, Kyle Shanahan knows how to scheme up an offense against a Sean McVay, regardless of who the defensive coordinator is for the Rams, the way that the Rams run their defense, he just perfectly knows how to dice him up. He does it all the time. Every time out. So should be an exciting one there. Blue Jay says Commanders, Vikings, or Falcons defense this week. Am I going to play the Viking? No, I'd probably just play the Commanders there against the Saints, especially if Carr's out. Ebbs and Flow says, what's up, Andrew? I literally got a buy from a tiebreaker on points 1992, 1991. That's how much total points you had. You had 1,900. Are you kidding me? What kind of rosters do you guys have? 1,900 is ridiculous in terms of total points scored in a singular season. Dave P says pick 2 Debo, Jacoby Myers, Thielen, DJ Moore. I mean, it looks like Thielen has to be started every week henceforth, right? I think that's pretty it's pretty standard. As for Jacoby Myers, losing Aiden O'Connell's rough. Having Desmond Ridder at quarterback doesn't make me feel too excited about it. So I'd go with Thielen and DJ Moore there, Dave P. Seventh King says, should I start CJ Stroud or Sam Darnold for the beginning of the playoffs? I have CJ starting the whole season. Yeah, I'm not too interested in playing CJ anymore. I got off of the CJ Stroud train just about when he lost. As soon as he lost Stephon Diggs, and of course Nico Collins was out, he disappeared. And even with Nico back, he hasn't been great. So Sam Darnold's got to be the guy that you roll with there most likely. Let's see here. Scrolling down, Donald Smith says Chuba Hubbard is a must-start rest season. Yeah, I mean, in great matchups, he's always been a great start. That's just been the given. I just didn't expect him to run through the Eagles defense. Dude, the Carolina Panthers really put it to the Eagles there. The fact that it was as competitive as it was, in my opinion, was a surprise. Maybe it's just a matter of like the Eagles played down to the Carolina Panthers, but I thought it should have been a way more one-sided, boring event. I didn't think that they should have kept up like that, but they did. Let's see here. Do you trust Rachaad White if Bucky is out? Yeah, if Bucky's out, Rachaad White is a top 15 player automatically. Thus far this season, there have been 4 separate games where he has had 16 or more touches, including this most recent performance. In the 4 games this season where he has had 16 or more touches, he's averaging 19 fantasy points per game. If you go back to 2023, in the 18-game season, the 17 games he played, there was only 3 games in which he had less than 16 touches. And in those games, he was averaging 15 fantasy points per game in 2023. So we know that Rachaad White, with no competition in the backfield, is a monster. So yeah, if there's no Bucky this week, absolutely fire up Rachaad White and expect him to ball out. Let's see here. Primetime says, I have Nico, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, and Jawan Jennings. Which 3 should I start for week 15 half PPR? Okay, so of the available, I think Nico Collins has to play. I think Jawan Jennings most likely has to play. Then if it's between AJ Brown, T. Higgins. Oh man, what are we doing here? AJ Brown, let's see here. I need to see what the schedule looks like for they take on the Titans. Is it crazy to sit AJ Brown there? That's what I'm thinking, primetime. Is it crazy? I think it is crazy, but I don't know if I want to do it. That's what my immediate thought is, though. Abdullah says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR 12-team league, I have Lamar, Saquon, Connor, Puka, London, Disley. Okay, Disley's going to miss the next couple weeks, so you need to drop him and pick up an alternative option. Who do I flex out of Bucky, BTJ, Charbonnet, and Braylon Allen? If there's no Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet plays every game rest of the season. And that's just how it is. In the event in which Kenneth Walker returns and Bucky Irving is going to play and we can see him practice more than once this week, then sure, we can play Bucky. But in the event in which he shows up having only limited practice on Friday, I wouldn't even trust playing him. So at that point, it would just go to playing BTJ. Got it? So it's a Charbonnet into a Bucky, contingent into a BTJ. Abdullah. God's Gang sends in a question, says, if Hall is out, who's a better play, Davis or Allen? Okay, so based on what we saw, based on snap counts, based on overall usage yesterday, the early down back, specifically like first and second downs, was predominantly held by Braylon Allen. Now, I'm not saying that Isaiah Davis didn't get himself utilization within that circumstance, but the vast majority of those overall kind of opportunities went in the direction of Braylon Allen. Isaiah Davis, though, on third down, played all but one snap within the backfield. I think on short yardage situations, he was the vast majority holder as well. And on the goal line, within the one singular touchdown that was had, he was in the offense. So again, if he's going to be preferred in that role, again, it gives him an advantage. But they take on the Jaguars. So really, I think both of them are startable within this circumstance, considering they're both going to get themselves a fair share of opportunity on the ground. Both could succeed, but as of the recent usage out of Isaiah Davis, regardless of which way this game script goes, he's probably the preferred. But again, that's under the assumption that Hall misses, which I don't even know if that's going to occur. That one's tough. Now, again, even if I prefer Isaiah Davis over Braylon Allen, theoretically speaking, it's not to say that like they're going to both. They could easily both pop off because they play against the Jaguars. You know what I mean? Santana Torres sends out a question. Says, "Hey Andrew, how are we feeling for the first round? Hurts, Bijan, Connor, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Hawkinson. Hawkinson's, man, we got to get rid of Hawkinson. I mean, look, luckily this week he takes on Chicago. Last time out against Chicago, had himself a monster performance. So fingers crossed that he can continue that. But man, we need to see some spreading of the love within that offense. It was just all Jefferson, Aaron Jones, and Addison on Sunday. Anyway, Cardinals defense, we have Jacoby Myers is what you meant to say. Are we comfy starting Thielen over Bucky if DNP? Yes, absolutely. You kind of have to at that point. In the event in which Bucky is not going to be available, you'd have to just... Thielen is a solid option. I mean, his target opportunity as of late has been very much so convincing. But Jalen Hurts, Bijan, Connor, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Hawkinson. Hawkinson's the only one that I quite frankly only have a complaint with. But even then, he takes on a matchup in which just back in week 12, he torched for over 100 receiving yards against them, a lot of which was in the second half of that game. Easy E says, who's better pickup for rest of season, Standard, Tank Bigsby, or Sincere McCormick? Here's the issue with McCormick. Well, I don't know if it's an issue. I don't know if Alexander Madison and or Zamir White are expected to ever return. If they're expected to return, there's no saying that they're going to get themselves an ample opportunity shared within the backfield. So it's purely just going to be a matter of matchups per se, which as of right now, let me go ahead and pull up the rest of season schedule at running back real quick. Give me a moment to do that. I have it in my Excel sheet. Okay, so in terms of the rest of season schedule at running back, the Jacksonville Jaguars have the Jets, the Raiders, and then the Tennessee Titans, which, I mean, again, this Jets game is a little bit sketchy, but Las Vegas and Tennessee should be advantageous. As for the Las Vegas Raiders schedule, I think they have a better one, quite frankly. Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans. 3 defenses that aren't great, can't stop the run. If Sincere McCormick had the full backfield to himself and it was guaranteed that there would be no interference played by Alexander Madison, I tell you that he's the better of the two rest of season. But I can't guarantee that. That's why I'm kind of leaning towards Bigsby, because I know he has already carved that role. Let's hear Edwin Antonio sends in a question. Says, should I start Garrett Wilson, Addison, or Garendo? I don't even know if Garendo is going to play. In the event in which Garendo theoretically plays on Thursday, am I going to start him over Garrett Wilson or Addison? The answer is probably yes. I'd probably play Garendo if he plays. But the issue that I have, okay, I'm almost getting flashbacks of Jordan Mason. My only concern if I play Garendo is, what if he plays, then he gets re-injured and leaves the game? So I'm almost thinking it might not be in your best interest to even play him, even if he's available, considering you have alternative options here that are solid. If I was going to play, if it's my team, if I get to Thursday, I'm still not 100% convinced by his return if he's available. I probably just end up playing Garrett Wilson at that point. Headshop sends in a question, says, in a 12-team standard league, wide receiver, tight end, flex, only have Adams, Wilson, Westbrook, BTJ, Thielen. Do I hit the wire based on this week's recommendation? Nope. Everything you have is better than what is available on the waiver wire. Quite literally every piece that you have. Nothing on the waiver wire episode, a wide receiver, would work for your team because they would not ever play. Thielen, BTJ, Westbrook, Wilson, Adams, they are all better options for the remainder of the season. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Armin says, how bad is Garendo's injury? He plays, right? I don't know if he plays, honestly. How bad is it? Again, from what it has been described as, it's a midfoot sprain. Now, they're not going to let him practice up until Thursday. So we're not going to know until Thursday afternoon that he's ready to go. So once we get to that position, we'll be pretty confident regarding that, and we'll be comfortable. But as of right now, don't hold your breath. That's all I'll say for now. Just got to be careful there, Armin. Ebbs and Flow says, my league is a 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 defense, 1 kicker. Still, 1,900 points in that kind of a league I still think is pretty insane for a full PPR with a 3 wide. Actually, for a 3 wide receiver league, that makes sense. Never mind. 1,900 for a 3 wide receiver league is okay. I'm pretty sure this one that I just showed you guys, how many points do I have for in this league? Yeah, in this league, I have 2,000 points for. Okay, so never mind. 1,900 is not crazy considering you have a 3 wide receiver full PPR. All right, Denon sends in a follow-up. Where art thou, Denon? Let's see here. Denon, where's your follow-up question? There it is. It says, should I pick up Tillman for wide receivers? I have Terry, I have Adam Thielen, I have JSN Mooney. I'm dropping Keenan Allen for Patrick Taylor and Keon Coleman for Quentin Johnston for rest of my bench. Honestly, I'm not dropping Keenan Allen there. I would rather just drop Keon Coleman if you can for Patrick Taylor. Keep Keenan Allen, preferably. And then as for picking up Tillman, I'm not interested in that. Terry McLaurin, Adam Thielen, JSN, those are significantly better options at 3 wide receiver spots or even 2 wide receivers in a flex for the foreseeable future. So for right now, no, I don't think you need to address picking up Tillman. I think the only thing you would need to address based on looking at your running backs, Hall, Jaylen Warren, and this current situation, Patrick Taylor should be your priority. Keon Coleman would be the drop in order to accomplish that, Denon. Thank you. God's Gang says, I feel like starting Jennings over London. Thoughts? I'm for it, brother. I'm all for it. The fact of the matter is, unfortunately, Kirk Cousins is on a, and we talked about it last week, we talked about it the week before. Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, is on a he's on a bullet train to ending his career. He is speed running the end of his career so badly. Again, it's not like his yardage count wasn't great, but the fact that he has not thrown a touchdown in 4 weeks definitely decreases the overall potential of upside for guys like Drake London, unfortunately. Oftentimes they are finding themselves floundering when they get into the red zone. So for right now, I wouldn't even blame you. I would honestly probably venture to say that by the time we get to Wednesday's wide receiver rankings, don't be surprised if Jennings is in the top 9 or 8 within this week. Let's see here. Daryl Zeng in the chat says, hi, Andrew. I'm in a 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex league. I have Mooney, Debo, Bijan, Swift, Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, Etienne, Pittman, Warren, and Kincaid. I mean, look, as of right now, Kincaid is not startable. Even if he's available for you, it's not even worth it. Bijan's a great play. Obviously, he's been like in a half PPR, if I'm not mistaken. It's like 18 plus points in 7 of the last 8. I mean, Bijan has been fantastic. In the event in which you're looking for a second running back this week, obviously it's going to be between Warren and Etienne. I probably, just out of safety's purposes, just play Warren there alongside of Bijan. As for your 2 wide receivers, at this point, considering the available, if Ladd McConkey is available to play, he would play alongside of most likely Mooney. And then I probably end up playing Michael Pittman Jr. alongside of Debo in your flex. In the event in which Ladd is not there, you put Quentin Johnston there. That's probably the way that I see it as of right now. It could change by the time we get from here to Sunday, depending on the injury situation that you have. Dave P in the chat says, standard scoring, I need 3 wide receivers between Kupp, Jacoby Myers, Debo, DJ Moore, and Thielen. As of right now, between those available, it probably ends up being Kupp, DJ Moore, and Thielen. Jacoby Myers with Desmond Ridder, I don't think is a trustable option. Debo Samuel's been very sketchy as of late, so the Moore and Thielen prospect of playing them is quite enticing in comparison. Luis Garcia says, who benched Josh Allen? Nobody. There's impossible. That is quite literally impossible. You know, that's funny though, Luis, somebody asked me on Sunday, do I play, what did they ask me? I think they asked, like, do I play Josh Allen or Burrow? I think that was the question. But I mean, again, Burrow was my number 1 quarterback, as it should be always. But yeah, I don't think anybody sat Josh Allen. That's probably impossible. Twisted Folk sends in a question. Thank you, Twisted. I appreciate it. Twisted says, in a 10-team half PPR, playoffs, week 16, 17, 4-way tie for 5th place. Team had top 2 points. My team had top points. 2 teams, 200 plus points this week. I got murdered. Okay, well, you know what the thing is? Typically what happens is when your team goes off for 200 the next week, it typically does not, this is what I have found for fantasy purposes. I don't know if you guys have this exact anecdotal experience, but anytime my fantasy teams go for a massive game of 200 points, the next week they come back and score 100. So I'm not trying to put it out there that we're all going to get schmacked this upcoming week, but I wouldn't be surprised. So, just wait. And you know what the funny thing is? I also feel the complete opposite way. When my team comes out and puts up 100, the next week they come out and put up 180. That's my experience. Again, that is just my internal, just the way that my teams have functioned. But maybe you guys feel it differently. Anyway, let's see where your roster is, Twisted Folk. It says my wide receivers are St. Brown, Ladd McConkey. We have Allen, Reed, dropping Reed. Okay, understood. Picked up Tillman, Watson, or Dobbs. Between the 3 of them, I'd pick up Watson, considering Dobbs is still in the he's still in the concussion protocol. So Watson will be the pickup there. Like I mentioned in the beginning so during the wide receiver section of today's waiver wire episode, I did mention before we got into talking about Tillman, if there's players like Thielen, Watson, or Dobbs available, please pick them up. Watson will be the preferred of those bunch. And then you said you have an additional message. Okay, let me see what you have here, Twisted Folk. Your next question says, after bad weeks from Reed, Wilson, DK, St. Brown, I'm momentarily flipped out and dropped DK and Wilson. Oh, jeez. Regret Wilson. My week 15 opponent scooped him. Oh, man. Yeah, look, here's the thing. Sometimes the emotions will get the best of us. Let's just hope for the best and hope that you can still survive this scenario, because that is rough, brother. That is rough, to say the least. Corey Miller sends in a question, says, Tua or Goff this week? I'd much rather play Tua. Honestly, against Houston, that defense can't stop anybody in their secondary. I mean, it's just, that is what it has been. And quite frankly, what we have seen from the Dolphins offense, they cannot run the ball. I don't care who they put back there. This offensive line is not making anybody move. If I'm not mistaken, this most recent week, Achane was averaging like 2 yards per carry. Or in the last 5 weeks, the backfield has averaged less than 3 yards per carry. So expect him to throw for the entirety of the game. That only helps Tua. His upside is going to be incredible. I think both plays are awesome. They're both top 12 potential, but Tua is just the preferred of the two, especially considering they take on Houston secondary that cannot stop a soul. Peyton Whitaker says, are you feeling any better since Pickens' fallout? Pickens' fallout? I mean, earlier today, when you say Pickens' fallout, are you talking about him getting injured? Because if I'm not mistaken, earlier today, I read he had a grade 2 hamstring injury, so he's not expected to play this upcoming week either, which prompted me to think before I put out the waiver wire episode. I thought, okay, maybe I should suggest somebody on the Steelers, but who am I supposed to suggest? Mike Williams doesn't do anything. Calvin Austin doesn't do anything. Freiermuth has been on fire, which is fantastic, but outside of that, Russell Wilson's probably a significantly lesser option. I was already not going to play him against the Eagles, but now it's even better reason not to. I don't know if that's what you're referring to though, Peyton. I am sending a question, says PPR, Braylon Allen, Patrick Taylor, Stevenson. Braylon Allen, Patrick Taylor, Stevenson. In the event, wow. In a PPR. Here's the issue. Stevenson doesn't get any receiving workload. Braylon Allen could get some exposure to that. Taylor's not going to most likely get any of that. If it's my team, if Garendo's out, I probably play Taylor on Thursday out of those 3 options. That's the way that I'm thinking about it as of right now. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Whose questions have I not read? Let's see here. Ron the Don says, I told you guys Garrett Wilson was going to come through and Muth was solid flex. Yeah, Muth was fantastic in replacement of Pickens. I was cooking on Sunday. Where are you cooking? Atta baby. Football sends in a question, says full PPR. What's my lineup for the next 2 games? Lamar, Achane, Gibbs, JJ Neighbors, McBride, Bijan. Look, I can't tell you for the next 2 weeks, but I can give you like an idea as to what I would go with this week because I don't even know who some of these teams play against in week 16. I haven't even gotten that far. Again, we're on the Cincinnati, right? We're looking at the next week. We're not looking forward. Lamar's an auto start. Gibbs and Achane are your running backs. JJ's your starting wide receiver. McBride is your wide receiver. Bijan's your flex. I'd play Judy over Neighbors going forward. And that's just it. That's your roster. You have a fantastic fucking team there, though. Eric in the chat says PPR, Patrick Taylor or Sincere McCormick worth the ad. Look, if we're talking about this week in specific, if you're trying to win to advance and you have Garendo on roster, that's why you would pick up Patrick Taylor. You wouldn't pick him up if you didn't have Garendo because, quite frankly, he's a 1-week guy. Now, if Garendo's injury is more significant, I would assume they'd place him on the IR and they would go pick up somebody else in order to open up space. But I assume this is only a 1-week deal. If you're looking for rest of season value, McCormick is probably the guy to add in that circumstance. You said my bench consists of Chubb, Braylon Allen, Bigsby, Kendre Miller, Ray Davis, Benson, Corum. So you basically have every handcuff, so no immediate value. So, adding another handcuff to this mix could be of value, but again, in your scenario, considering you don't have Garendo, may not be the smartest idea to pick up Taylor there because there's a chance that you miss out on McCormick and you can't even play him this week because, even in the event, yeah, considering you don't have Garendo, it's probably a better idea to pick up McCormick. Carlos Ruiz says, made the playoffs, but I'm concerned about Swift and Pacheco. Yeah, I don't think you can play Swift or Pacheco going forward, but depends what your alternatives are. Says I have Dowdle and Pollard. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, yeah, you're good. You're safe. You're good to go, Carlos. Play both Dowdle and Pollard very comfortably going into this week's matchup. Pollard versus Cincinnati, Dowdle versus Carolina. Fantastic. So leave Swift and Pacheco on the bench, which is unfortunate, but it is the reality of the situation. CJ says, what Watson? Christian Watson is the one that I was referring to when I was talking about it earlier. Let's see here. Nate Nix says, okay, so Brown is out of the picture for sure. LOL, thanks, y'all. Sutton makes me nervous right now, but I'm willing to go with him. Give him a go. When you talk, who are you talking about? Okay, Brown is out of the picture. I don't know who he's talking about. Sean K says, why the heck would you have Hurts and Allen? LOL. Listen, I've seen some teams that have Hurts and Allen. I've seen some teams that have Jaden Daniels and Allen, which makes more sense because of where we drafted Jaden Daniels this offseason. But yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff, guys. Tom in the chat says, should I drop Tank Dell for Bigsby, ETN, Tucker, Taylor, or Davis? Yeah, in the event in which you're looking for the best running back play of the bunch, you would theoretically just drop him and pick up ETN this weekend. That's the way that I'm going to lean in the direction of. If you were looking for the replacement, obviously, of Garendo, if you had Garendo on roster, you'd pick up Taylor. Otherwise, yeah, I think ETN's probably the guy for this week. If you're looking for rest of season value, it's Tank Bigsby. Thank you. Peyton Whitaker sends in a question, says, talking about whenever you heard about Pickens on Sunday. Oh, yeah, I crashed out. That was hilarious. I went on like a 5-minute rant regarding, okay, listen, if Pickens is active, he's in my lineup, please, guys, trust that he's going to be healthy, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. 2 minutes later, guys, he's out. All right, we're going to have to backtrack everything we just said. Yes, that is funny. Again, it happens. It was just perfect timing, though. At the time, I probably was really pissed, but I can assure you, sometimes it's just a matter of like, I spent like 5 minutes talking about him straight consecutively. And then the fact that he goes out the next second, it's like, all right, I just wasted the last 5 minutes. We could have answered 40 more questions. Let's see here. Janelle says Tua or Jaden Daniels this week. Got to play Jaden Daniels. He has so much more upside. I mean, it's just the upside that he provides in a 4-point per passing touchdown league because of those rushing efforts. It's really hard not to roll with him in that scenario, especially considering they're playing against New Orleans. They should probably drop 40 on New Orleans' head this weekend. Let's see here. Tony Lopez says, this has to be one of the highest scoring fantasy weeks in a while. Well, the funny thing is, it's probably not. Like on a per game basis, it may end up being the case, but imagine this was a bipocalypse too. It's crazy. It says, so many guys went nuclear, even the Jets wide receivers. That is funny. That is, yeah, even the Jets. That's how you know it was a good week, when the Jets wide receivers are playing well. Elite Squad says, will A.J. Brown and London remain a start over Shakir and Adunze? Look, Adunze I cannot start. Unless DJ Moore or Keenan Allen are out, I'm not playing Adunze there. Now, as for Shakir this weekend, or specifically against the Detroit Lions, in a PPR, it could be considered as a potential option. Especially considering Shakir, again, I mentioned it on Wednesday's episode of last week. If I'm not mistaken, let's see, how many receptions did he have on Sunday against our Rams? He had 5 catches. I mean, since week 7, in the games in which technically have not been snow games, he's averaging like 7 catches a game. The guy is a machine for PPR. So I wouldn't mind it. And you know what the funny thing is? I said, guys, the issue with Shakir is he doesn't score touchdowns. And in the week that I say it, he scores a touchdown. Let's see here. Zachary says, you think they're scaling back T because of contract? No, Jason Zachary, they're not going to be able to keep T Higgins. They can't afford him. T Higgins is going to probably garner, I want to say, somewhere between 28 to 30 mil. The fact that they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase 45, it just makes it impossible for them to bring back T Higgins. So unless T Higgins was to take a team-friendly deal, which he has no business of doing so, he needs to look out for himself. He probably ends up with Carolina or Las Vegas or somebody like that, New England, who doesn't have a wide receiver one that wants one, and they're going to shell 30 mil out for him, maybe more. So no, I don't think that they're scaling him back for contract because, quite frankly, they can't afford him. Frost Fruit says, pick 2 next week, Jennings, Cup, Lamb. I mean, it's probably... Conventional wisdom says you play Cup and Lamb. I'm very much so considering playing Jennings ahead of Lamb. Very much so. I probably would. I don't know. We'll see. Especially in a full PPR, I'm very much so considering it. All right, let's see here. Max Andre says, Addison or Thielen? I don't know if I love... I mean, you know what? Now that I think about it, think somebody asked this earlier. I think it might have to just be an Addison play. I think you well, I want to play them both, but I think you might have to just play Addison. What did he do? Didn't he have a monster game against Chicago 2 weeks ago in week 12? Didn't he have like 2 touchdowns in the game as well? It's probably an Addison play as of right now. Denver or Pittsburgh's defense. If I'm not mistaken, Pittsburgh plays the Eagles. I'm not really interested in playing Denver, or I'm not really interested in playing Pittsburgh's defense against Philadelphia. So I'll take Denver there, John Perez. Booger says Addison. Yeah, as of right now, it's got to be Addison. Peyton Whitaker says, screen recorded. It was dying. I was dying. Okay, dude. Good one. Good one. Maddie says, Juwan Jennings or Addison in the flex. That one's a little bit sketchier. PPR, as of right now, between the two of them. Again, I'm going to have a hard time not starting Juwan Jennings in many of my leagues. I'll just put it that way. Pollux, what's up? Says, I started Jaden Reed and James Cook. Left Thielen, Addison, and Dowdle on the bench. Sheesh. Yeah. James Cook, he was the byproduct of the James. The funny thing is, besides the 3 touchdowns that Josh Allen obviously scored, the fact of the matter was the Bills didn't lead a single time in that whole game. So there was never a time for them to be in a positive game script to where they're running the ball. They didn't find a reason to do so. And then of course, Ty Johnson comes in. I think Ray Davis had 0 points. I think he had 0 touches as well. Pretty interesting turnout for the backfield of the of the Bills. Jay McLaughlin says, hey, Andrew, am I nuts to consider starting Jameis versus Kansas City over Hurts versus Pittsburgh? Yes, I think you're crazy. Listen, Jameis, if you guys are going to start Jameis, you have to do it on your own volition. I cannot warn you guys enough regarding Jameis. He will throw many of picks. That's just what he does. Is this an outlier for Arizona's defense? I think it is. I think, again, when you take on New England, it's an easier matchup entirely, to the point to where it's not only a matter of the matchup in itself is an advantageous one because of New England's ineptitude as an offense and lack of talent, but additionally, considering the lack of run-stopping ability by the New England defense, it'll open up more of an opportunity for the Arizona Cardinals to claim a lead, and what they do best is cover. That is their best aspect. It's not really stopping the run. So for right now, once they're able to take that lead, I do think that Arizona is still a solid play this week. Sean K says Jennings seems like a more steady option. Yeah, I mean, when Purdy's been healthy and we have had no weather to impact Jennings, the guy has seen 10 plus targets in last 4 consecutive games with Purdy. He's just been, I think he's gotten himself like a 30+% target rate. It's ridiculous. Ron the Don says James Conner about to be unleashed. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong at all. Constantino says, my boy PPR, I have Braylon Allen. Would you pick up Taylor, Bigsby, or Isaiah Davis? I mean, at this point, I'm not playing Bigsby this week over him. I'd consider playing Isaiah Davis or Taylor over him under the assumption. I'd play Taylor over him, assuming Garendo was out. But again, that is only if he's out. We'll have to wait till Thursday to know for sure. We won't know until then. CJ says, can I drop Neighbors and Brees for Addison and Juwan Jennings? It depends on how many teams are in your league. If you play in a league that has 6 teams and you can afford to do something of that nature, then sure. Janelle says full PPR to running back wide receiver 2 flex. We have Connor, Jacobs, Mixon, CD, Higgins, Marvin Harrison Jr., Sutton. I mean, at this point, Connor, Jacobs, Mixon have to play. I think Higgins, CD, Sutton have to play. So that the issue becomes Marvin Harrison's the odd man out, and you have one additional player that is not supposed to be in the mix here. Start. How do we go about this? It probably ends up being a situation where you're either sitting CeeDee Lamb or Higgins. I don't know which one of the two yet, All right, guys, how long have we been here for? About an hour plus. All right, I'm going to answer a couple more questions, then I'm going to head out. Again, I appreciate y'all coming through. Tomorrow, around probably 2-3 p.m. PST, we'll have our running back rankings for Week 15 out, ready to go. Again, do not forget, we live stream here every single day on the channel. Tomorrow night, I'll be back at 7 p.m. Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Thursday night after the Thursday night football game. Friday night, 7 p.m. Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Bright and early, ready to go, answering questions. Again, live streaming every single day on the channel. So I'll be back tomorrow to answer questions. If you guys want unlimited questions answered on an individual basis, you can always check out the Patreon. Links down in the description in terms of that. Outside of that, we'll answer a couple more and we're heading out. Appreciate y'all. Football says, with the crappy Bills defense showing versus the Rams, for week 16, do I play them versus the Patriots? Yes, I would still play them against the Patriots. Absolutely. Again, there's a huge difference between what the Patriots offense and what the Rams offense is capable of. And again, this was the best game that the Rams have played offensively this season. I mean, in terms of total yardage, if I'm not mistaken, they're like 476 total yards, which is the most yards they've had all season long. I even went back to last season. They had maybe 2 or 3 games of that capacity. You go back to 2022, they had no games as high as that. 2021, they had no games as high as that. Like, this is one of the best outings for the Rams. So I wouldn't give up on the Bills defense. They're so solid. Carson says, are we playing Judy this week with Tillman back or Thielen? I'm still going to play Judy in that circumstance. Elite Squad says, does Braylon Allen find the starting lineup against HM Montgomery Dowdle? No. Braylon Allen is sitting on the bench in that scenario, Elite. Maurice Brown sends in a super chat. Thank you, Maurice. I appreciate it. It says, Jaden Daniels or Jalen Hurts this week? I'd rather play Jaden Daniels. Thank you. Sean K says, okay, so he's talking about something else. Carson, we took care of that. Supa, what's up? Supa, you made it just on time for me to end the stream. Braden in the chat says, I have the Eagles defense versus Pittsburgh or Broncos versus the Colts. I'd rather play the Broncos versus the Colts. Also, would you play Laporta over Kelsey since Noah Gray is a thorn in his side? Am I going to play? It's a great question. I still don't do that. I still play Kelsey in that scenario. Okay, we took care of that. Supa says I have Garendo. It says if Garendo plays, probably won't. Get Taylor, Sincere, or Chubb if Garendo sits. If he sits, of the 3, I'd prefer to play Patrick Taylor. Friendship in the chat says Addison or Aaron Jones versus DJ Moore. Dude, that is... Whew. You guys are asking too difficult of questions. It's too early. It's only Monday. We'll get to there. Okay, again, guys, I do appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow with the running back rankings video. And then, of course, live streaming tomorrow night for 7 p.m. Hopefully, we'll have more clarity regarding some of these situations, and then we can go ahead and set it all up for success in order to make the waivers a seamless and painless situation. I do appreciate y'all. Much love. Somebody just asked Tucker Kraft or Jawan Johnson. Yeah, it's got to be Tucker Kraft, especially with Derek Carr's injury. Tucker Kraft all the way. All right, guys. Much love. I'm cueing the music. Have a great rest of your Monday night. Congratulations on making the fantasy playoffs. If you did not make the playoffs and your season was cut short as of right now, again, there's always next season. Or, of course, that's why we draft more teams. The more leagues you play in, the more opportunities you get at the entire dance. I appreciate y'all. Much love. Cueing the music. And until next time, have a great night. I'll see you guys. Peace.